We're talking about integrity this morning. There will be a few stories from my loose leaf Bible. Each of you should have your own loose leaf Bible. You retain the stories that have meaning for you, and without regret at all, you just chuck out the ones that don't have meaning for you. I mean, if it's commanding the Israelites to go and kill every man, woman, and child in some village, you toss that out without any regret. And you keep adding new ones. These stories are now your own scripture. I may have told a few of these before, and I apologize for that, but if it's scripture, it bears repeating. There was a story about Giuseppe, an Italian laborer. The boss told him, "Giuseppe, dig a hole right here." There were several other men watching. Giuseppe dug the hole. The boss said, "All right, Giuseppe, fill up that one and dig over here." So he dug over there, and the boss said, "Okay, Giuseppe, fill that one up and dig over here." At the fourth time, Giuseppe balked. He said to the boss, "I'm no gonna dig it for nothing. You make a fun with me." Then the boss realized that he hadn't explained the purpose. He said, "Giuseppe, I'm sorry for not telling you. We're looking for a pipe down there somewhere." "Oh," said Giuseppe. "Okay, where you want me dig?" Giuseppe had a sense of integrity. The next story is solidly in my loose leaf Bible. It's also from Wendell Berry, who wrote the words earlier about the heron and the wood drake. In this story, Uncle Stanley Gibbs is explaining to Jaber Crow why he quit his job as a grave digger. "Why now, by God, preacher and that undertaker come up day before yesterday wanting me to go out there by myself in that rain and dig 2 graves in one day. I says, by grab, I won't do it. I'm too old, I can't do it. All I can do is dig 1 grave in a day." "Well now," the preacher says, "Mr. Gibbs, perhaps you ought to try." "Try nothing," I says I did. "You look around that ground out there. That ground is so wet you could dig a grave with a bucket as quick as you could dig one with a shovel. That's a job of work. I reckon you don't know a job of work, but I do because I've done several." "Well," preacher says, "what are we going to do?" "Do," I said, "we're going to get somebody help me dig them graves, or they ain't going to get dug, and you can just keep them corpses in the Sunday school rooms until I get around to them. That's what we're going to do." "Mr. Gibbs," he said, "you was hired to dig them graves." Made me mad, he did. I says, "Now look a here. They've sat around here for 6 weeks in a row and ain't one of them died, and now here 2 of them ups and dies in one day. It ain't right," and I quit. Jaber asked him, "Did you dig the graves?" "Well, I dug one of them 2. Preacher got them big old boys of Siler Smith's to dig the other one. By grab, you ought to seen it. Them big old idiots wallowing and tromping around in that mud. They'd dig out a little hole and it'd cave in on them. And then they'd throw out a shovel full of mud and a shovel full would run back in. And them a-fighting it like killing snakes and cussing till you'd have thought they woke up everybody there. Even I could hear them. I got mine dug and went home in the middle of the afternoon, and they just got theirs down about waist deep. Some of them said the preacher and that undertaker finally had to come and help them, and they was out there with a lantern still digging when midnight come. Uncle Stanley has to stop and laugh. Well, they dug a pond, sort of shaped like a funnel. I know just how it happened because I made the same mistake myself when I was new at the work. When you dig one of them holes in the mud, if you don't be careful about tramping around the edges of it and don't watch what you're doing when you cut down the sides to do it just so, well, it'll widen out at the top quicker than you can deepen it at the bottom. When the preacher and the undertaker and them boys got done gomming around in it and tramping around it and falling into it and climbing out of it, that grave must have been 8 foot wide and 10 foot long, and tracked and tramped and muddied around the edges till it looked like where a sow had had pigs. They throwed the dirt out on the downhill side because it was easier, and it rained a hard one before daylight, and there wasn't nothing to keep half the hillside from draining right into the hole, and she filled plumb to the brim. That undertaker was there half the morning, unrolling that imitation grass of his'n, trying to make a kind of shore to it, so the family and friends of Mrs. Brewster wouldn't notice they was attending one of them naval burials. He let on he didn't see me coming on account of the words I'd had with him and the preacher the morning before, but I walked right up like the sun was shining and we was the only friend each other had. Well, I says, the Jordan's running a little muddy this morning, ain't she? Pretty near out of the banks, looks like. He went right on about his work like he never heard me. I says, is this going to be a baptizing or a funeral? He tried not to say anything, but I could keep it coming up in him, and he finally let it out. You'd look a damn sight better with your mouth shut, he says. I'm just here waiting for the bolt, I said. And then I let up on him and give him a hand. I just wanted to make sure he knew you can't get a grave dug the way it ought to be by just any darn knothead that happens by. Uncle Stanley Gibbs had integrity. Some words about Einstein from Ronald Clark, who wrote a book about him. Einstein's early history suggests dormant genius. Nothing in Einstein's early history suggests dormant genius. Quite the contrary. One feature of his childhood about which there appears to be no doubt is the lateness with which he learned to speak. He was a pupil for whom teachers held out only poor prospects. There was a family legend that when his father, Hermann Einstein, asked his son's headmaster what profession his son should adopt, the answer was simply, it doesn't matter, he'll never amount to anything. He was always losing things. One time, Einstein sat in the dining car and was unable to find his glasses. After a while, he asked the waiter to please read the menu to him. The waiter responded, sorry, sir, I ain't had education either. A sense of integrity is certainly one secret of his success. Clothes didn't matter. He wore an unpressed suit. One time he went without socks and decided he didn't need socks anymore. During one long illness, in the middle of his career, Einstein was asked if he feared death. What I fear, said Einstein, is that my children will be brought up under fascism. This brings us to Edward Snowden. Big Brother is gathering data on us, and it's all secret. At least it was until Chelsea Manning revealed what was going on. She's now serving 35 years in prison for telling us about it. The people in the U.S. and indeed many other countries didn't know the extent of this massive surveillance of their daily lives. Time magazine last December named Pope Francis as the person of the year. Edward Snowden came second. His story took 13 pages in Time, which said, "This 30-year-old computer whiz has just committed the most spectacular heist in the history of spycraft." At the time Snowden went public, the American people had not just been kept in the dark, they had been actively misled about the actions of their government. In 2012, National Intelligence Director James Clapper told Congress that the National Security Agency did not collect any type of data on millions of Americans. After the Snowden documents were leaked, Clapper apologized for his clearly erroneous answer, saying that he was only giving, quote, "the least untruthful," unquote, response possible. The Guardian Weekly of July 25th had 4 pages on Snowden, quoting him as saying, and this is a good summary of what's happening, how deep it is. Snowden said, "It may be that by watching everywhere we go, by watching everything we do, by analyzing every word we say, by passing judgment over every association we make and every person we love, by doing all that we could uncover a terrorist plot." But Snowden said, is that the kind of society we want to live in? He's not against targeted surveillance, but he has constitutional objections to security agencies routinely seizing digital material from innocent people, when they wouldn't dream of entering people's houses to plant spy cameras or walk off with personal diaries and photographs. If these things are wrong in analog life, why not in our digital lives? And where, he asks repeatedly, is the evidence that it is cost-effective or even effective? Snowden has a sense of integrity, and humankind is all the better for his courage. The first step in doing something about all this is to at least know it's happening. Here's another story in my loose-leaf Bible. A century ago, a fellow named Merton had a deep-seated yearning. He had heard about God all his life, but never in all this time had he had any personal awareness. He never even once sensed the actual presence of God. He wanted to feel this spiritual presence. Mert went to Bishop Quayle, the much-loved Methodist bishop, and said, "Bishop, I would really like to have an experience of God. How can I do that?" Bishop Quayle said, "Well, Mert, you go way out into the deep woods. Find a quiet place, open your soul to the elements, and listen. Really listen for the still small voice." It was raining the next day when Mert started out on his solitary pilgrimage. It was cold. He got out of his car and headed deep into the woods. The wind picked up, the rain pelted down. In the deep woods, he leaned back against a tree to open his soul. He listened. The freezing cold rain came down the back of his neck. He listened with all his might, but he couldn't hear the voice of God at all. He went back to Bishop Quayle and he said, "Bishop, I went out there in the deep woods, like you said, and the rain was pelting down. I was shivering. I listened for a long time. I really listened. I could not hear the still small voice. All I could think of was, Mert, what a fool you are." Bishop Quayle looked at him with great compassion and sighed. "Well, Mert, what better thing could the Lord tell you?" A sense of integrity doesn't always bring the result you want. If you will indulge me a personal reference, Bonnie returned home 2 weeks ago after a month and a half away. If anyone has a sense of integrity, it's Bonnie Cappuccino. She has a well-documented, incurable affliction called babies on the brain. That's all she thinks about. And like Sir Lancelot, or was it Sir Gawain, I can't remember, she has the strength of 10 because her heart is pure. Unlike my own heart, which is somewhat tainted, Mae West famously said, "I'm as pure as the driven slush." That's me. Nevertheless, with all my foibles and sins, my main purpose in life is to do what I can to enable her to do what she loves. I try to shore her up where she's weak and to endure the barbs and brickbats she keeps lobbing in my direction. Actually, my ongoing problem is that she knows I'm totally enchanted with her and she takes advantage. Recently, I started signing my letters Fred Cappuccino, JBS. Just barely surviving. One of the best things we have going for us as Unitarians is our religious education program for children. No other denomination has anything that comes close. The religious education program is the best way to attract new families, and it's our duty to offer this to people around us. With most religions, the idea is you open a child's skull and you pour in some doctrines and beliefs that you think he or she should have, which often doesn't succeed very well. With us, it's to encourage the resources they have within themselves. We don't tell them God made the butterfly. That stops all thinking about it, really. We want them to ask questions. Now, do we answer their questions? I'm not going to answer that question. Regarding the butterfly, we would encourage them, for example, to investigate how it develops from a caterpillar, to look with a microscope at the dust on their wings, to see the elegant pattern and the colors, and to discover that the deeper they probe, the more profound is the mystery and the beauty and the miracle, if you please, of the butterfly. With Unitarians, it's okay to be in a quandary. Now, I want to close with a story I told last night at our Child Haven dinner about comedian Peggy Wiggins, who has difficulty in her love life. She feels that she sometimes goes too fast with men and it turns them off. She said, "I'm like, I love you. I want to marry you. I want to move in with you." And he's like, "Well, lady, give me the $20 and for the pizza and I'll be out of here." Now, there are various kinds of love, and that one is not to be encouraged. Let us observe a season of meditation. The span of life passes, and the time of our years is all too brief. Let us therefore make room in our fellowship for those who have need of our love. Make room for the uprooted one who has rejected the past but cannot find a future. Make room for the withdrawn, who alone know their woes and have not yet found the courage to share them. Let them sense that ours is not a judging fellowship, and that each of us at some time or other is agonized by conduct we regret, and that we also stand in need of forgiveness. Make room for the proud, who knows all the answers except the important ones. Make room for the sophisticate, who knows how to act except in crisis. Make room for the maker of waves, who disturbs the status quo but cannot always improve upon it. All these are the fabric of which human progress is fashioned, and all these have need of our fellowship. There is so much in modern life hostile to human nurture. Let us therefore deal gently with each other, and let us make room in our fellowship, for the span of life passes, and the time of our years is all too brief. So be it.